How's everyone doing today? CJ Halleck with CJHalleck.com. And if you're following along, we are building out a business website in the full tutorial. And this video, I'm going to be covering Elementor Sections, which is basically what you're putting the widgets, if you will, or the elements of the page builder into. So the first thing we're going to cover is how to open up a new section. Basically, if you're on a brand new Elementor, clean Elementor page, you have two options. You can either import a template, which is going to be a totally separate video, or you can open up a new section. So we're going to go ahead and click on Add New Section. And at this section is, or this part of the process is where you want to choose what type of structure you want. If you want to have it a single row, multiple, a single column, multiple columns, how you want them spaced out. If you're not sure, you want to go along the way, you can go ahead and definitely, you can change this as you move forward. We're going to go ahead and start with one just to make it easy. And the different parts, now that we have that inserted, the left side is where you're going to make all of your edits in Elementor. So the first thing I like to do when I put in a new section, most of the time, some sites don't call for this depending on how you're designing it, but I like all of my sites to somewhat stretch the full section. So basically when you open it up and it goes full screen, the section will stretch all the way to the edge on both sides. So basically we're going to come in, we're going to click yes, and that's going to go ahead and stretch. I don't know if you saw that. It'll take it from having it kind of boxed in to full width. And that is for the background. Your content, what sits inside of it, you know, if you see here, these aren't all the way to the edge down in the footer. The content here isn't at the edge, neither is the header. And that is where this content width comes in. You can go full width if you're doing a, if like an image or a video or something like that that you want to display full width. But most of the time, I go ahead and keep that set on boxed. The columns gap, what this does is this lets you decide how wide the columns are going to be if you add columns inside of this section. So basically, once again, I'll leave this default most of the time. But if you try to add another section, and I'm going to go ahead and do one right now, so we'll just go ahead and come in. I'll right click, this is your edit buttons for the section. So you'll be able to close the section out and delete it. You can edit the section, which is basically you'll right click right there to get the basic information, or if you click on it, it brings up this edit section. And then you can hit plus to add a new section above it. So I'm going to go ahead and click got it. I don't need the little pop-ups. And the same thing here. And this is basically your rows, or I'm sorry, your columns. I always get it messed up. This is for your columns inside of the section. So you can come in here and right click and click add new column. And then now you have a 2-section column. Keep in mind, if you want it to have multiple sections, that you can do it this way, and you can also use, and it's one of the very first videos we're going to have as far as the elements are concerned is the intersection. So if you want to have like this be an image and this have like a paragraph and then 2 buttons underneath it, you'll want to have extra rows inside of this section. So that's what you'll use this for. So it'll break up into sections inside of this section. If I didn't say section too much and confuse you. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and close this out. We'll delete that. And we'll come back here. So that's the gap is basically the spacing between those 2 sections. Height, you can choose fit to screen, which basically will make it full size image. Minimum height, where you can set an actual pixel height if you want the image, the background or whatever to be a specific height for this section. Or you can choose default, which basically adjusts based on what element you have in here and how you have those settings. Content position, This is going to be very important, especially if you leave the height to, default. you want to make sure that you choose where you want the content to be positioned. For instance, in the header, you don't want your logo to take up this much space, and then your navigational menu, you may not want it all the way at the top or all the way you may want it in the middle, even with the logo. And that's where you'd want to just choose middle if that's the case. And this basically, it changes any of the content that's inside of this section individually where it needs to be, unless you go into, because you can do the same thing inside of the column, and you can change the content position here too. So depending on how you want the site to build, you can change that accordingly. And then we'll come down, won't touch HTML tag and the structure. I would leave that, that's the reset, just takes it back to whatever you brought it in as. So if you add extra, columns and stuff, it would change. But we're going to go in. Next thing is the style. And this is where you're going to want to pay close attention. This is how you're going to break your website up. You don't want to have a website that's just text and images completely top to bottom, all on white background. You'll want to have some breakups, like you see in the footer, where I have a darker color here, and then I have like the orange that you see here is kind of like a call to action. You can change that here by doing one of three things. The last section I'm going to cover first, and that's a background video. And the reason why I'm going to do this one first, you can import a YouTube video. So if we go to YouTube right now, and we can, let's just do, I don't know, let's do lions. Walking on road. Alright, so we have this video with the lions, all these lions walking. It's 51 seconds. Close that off. And it's just a cool little background video if you wanted to use that. You can do that, so you can come in here, copy the video, paste the video, and then the background will be a video. The problem with that is it doesn't always load fast, and you want to make sure that your websites load fast above everything else. Doesn't matter how fancy it is. If it takes 30 seconds to load, you're not going to get traffic to stay. So that's the first thing you can do. I'm not going to keep that. I'm going to go ahead and delete. And it says you can do a YouTube link or a video file, which, technically you could upload the video and host it on your server, but that's going to be slower than a YouTube link. So, if you do decide to do video, please be sure to do YouTube for faster reference point. Next thing is gradient. This is going to basically do a fancy gradient in the background. So you can choose, your main color, let's say green, and then you see the gradient fade here. And if I wanted just to kind of show you guys, we'll set this to minimum height, so you can see the full gradient from the green to the like pinkish red that's here. And you can, like I said, you can change, where it sits as far as like how the gradient fades. If you want more of one color than the other, back and forth, whatever. Same thing on the other one. You can take it up to the top if you wanted to. Then you can do radial, which does more of like the first color in the center, and then on the outside where you want that set, if you want it coming from different angles. There's a lot of different things you can do inside of the gradient for different styles. If you wanted to, you can do kind of grays, blacks, and kind of try to make it kind of like a metallic look if you want. Just like I said, you can be creative with it. It's however you want your website to look. But the last thing you're going to want to look into is the classic. Then that is basically two options. You're going to have a background color where you can just basically choose whatever color you want. And if you choose not to do a color, we can go ahead and come in here and click clear. That'll make it whatever the actual background color for the page is. Which by default is white, or you can come in and add an image. So if we're going to do an image for the background, I'm going to go ahead and use what I have for my cover photos. So we're going to go ahead and upload an image. I'll drag it in so you guys don't have to wait for me to watch. I'll just drag that in here. and I have it open in another folder on my second monitor. Like I said before in the earlier videos, you want to make sure that you fill out the alt text and the description. This is how Google knows what the image is. It's going to help for your SEO as well, which is what it takes to rank in Google and get on the front page. So this is going to be a TBF Labs Lego background image. Background image for hero section on TBF Labs. All right. And you'll click insert media, and then you'll see it automatically throws the background image up. Everything is set to default, so you're going to want to make sure that you go through this section to get it to display the way you want it. The first thing is the position. Most of the time, depending on the image itself, I'll normally go center. That throws that cool little dude right there, dead center of the image. The attachment, this is the difference between whether when you scroll, if the image goes with the scroll, or if it sits there and gives you that fancy parallaxed look or not. So if you go scroll, it will scroll with the page. If you do fixed, it stays stationary. So all the content over the top of it will move with it, and that just stays in the background. So you can decide on how you want that. Next thing is repeat. I normally make sure every time that I do no repeat, unless you do little small like square images to make it one solid, you know, if you're doing like a texture or something like that. But that's a little dated, and I would recommend that you don't use that. Next thing is size. I normally go cover, and that just makes sure no matter where it's at, that it will cover the full size of the window. So, you know, regardless of, you know, whatever size you were editing in, that, you know, you completely can get that through. And a side note, I'm going to be covering this in a separate video as far as responsive web design, but just because I need to cover it now so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Down here, and I should have covered this in the editor, the Elementor basic walkthrough, but these are the different sections that you can get to. The navigator give you basic information on, you know, if you want to find different things inside of here. You know, it shows the section. You know, it's just a quick way for you to navigate through the web page if you're building a really long form copy and stuff on the site. But I'm going to X that out. I don't need it. Of course, settings. This is where you can change a lot of the different information for this. Overall page. So if you know, you set your feature image here, change it to publish. You know, you can hide the title here instead of, you know, where I showed in the earlier video how you had to do it before you opened Elementor. You can do all that here as well. The next thing is your history. This will let you see everything, all the stuff that we just edited. All of it is right here. So you can come in here if, you know, whatever you did, you can come in and click this button right here, and it'll take you back to that last edit for wherever you're at. So if you make mistakes, this is your help me box, or help me button, if you will, to get back to something so you can fix that mistake. Next is the responsive mode, and this is what I wanted to talk about. So you can come in here and go to tablet, and it will show you what it will look like on a tablet, and the same thing for mobile. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that as you're designing your websites, especially in the sections, to make sure that it looks right for each section as you go through. So I'm going to go back to desktop, and we're going to go back into the sections. All right, so close that out. All right, back on style. So we have the background. We've covered the background, we've covered the sizes and how we want to do it. Next thing we're going to look into is the background overlay. If you wanted to do white text over this image, right now it wouldn't be too bad, with the exception of right here where this balloon is. I think, yeah, right. Yeah, that's a balloon. The stick for the balloon, or the string, if you will, where it's white. If you did white text over this, along with the bang and the little explosion cloud, if you will, on his shirt or chest or whatever you want to call this, it would kind blend in. The white text would blend in with that. So you can change that by changing the background color to black. Just do background type. You can go color and black, and it'll automatically darken it. And you want to keep it the solid color here, and just instead of, you know, right here it shows where you can change the opacity. You want to make sure that's all the way dark, and just change the opacity down here so you can make it really dark or really light. You can change all that right here, and that's what I would do. Change it until you get it the way you want it. Border, this is if you want a border around it, around the image. You can do it multiple different ways. Of course, they have different border types. Solid, double, you know, all the different things. I normally keep everything to solid. I just like the way it looks. And then, of course, you have the width, so you can come in, you know, and change what that width of that is. It automatically sets to link all four. So if you don't want to do that, you can actually go 0, click this to unlink the four selections, and then you can actually come in here and do like 5 on the top and 5 on the bottom. And that way it doesn't bring in a frame on the sides, or if you want it to have just on the sides, you can, you know, kind of take this to 0, change the right side to 5, and then you have that on the side. Like I said, it's a lot to take in, but this is just different ways you can edit for visual, you know, effects and stuff that can help. And then, of course, this right here, and we'll go ahead and link it up, make it easier for you guys to see. We'll do 10. So you see the border all the way around it, and then you can come in here and change the color, whatever you want. So basically, we'll go full screen so you can see what we're looking at. And then it just kind of works, kind of looks like a frame, if you will. So it's just different stuff to look into. Shape divider. This is a cool feature that allows you to build out a site that looks super detailed without a lot of work. And basically what this does is it gives in between, and of course there's no other sections on this page, so it pulls off of the header, so it makes a little fancy break between the two. So if you can see here, you can do mountains. Now of course it doesn't, that to me doesn't look like mountains, but anyways, you know, drops. You know, if you own a painting company, this may be a cool thing you can have, where colors will actually, you know, and of course you wouldn't want to have the border, so I'll just put none here, so we can see the full effect of the shape dividers. But you can, I mean, you can do a lot of different stuff with this, you know, waves brush, just different stuff. Depending on what your business is, you may see different things. You may want to break it up fancy in the different pages, and you know, there's a lot of different stuff you can do with the shape dividers. But that's how you do it on the top, and of course you can just click on bottom, and then you can come in the bottom and then add another one there, and that gives you just a little weird look right now, really. Well, let's see, was it pyramids? So we'll go to bottom and we'll go pyramids. So you can see kind of how it breaks it down and gives it a different look. You know, and then you of course can change, you know, the width, how you want it to go, how high you want it. You know, if you want it, you know, super sharp or, you know, barely there, you can flip it so it goes to the opposite side, invert it, and that'll basically just put the breaks on the different sides, if you will. And then you can also bring it to front, and that'll actually that'll display over the content on the widget, or the elements and things of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and click, put that back to no. And the next thing is typography. And this is where you can, you know, inside this section, if you want to edit this section to where, you know, you have the heading, you know, headings are one color, the text is another link color, stuff like that, and the basic text alignment. Last thing is going to be advanced, and I'm going to go ahead and come down here and turn off those shape dividers. Make it easy to understand when we get to the rest of it. Okay, so now in advanced, this is where you're really going to spend some time in the design process. So you need to pay attention, because a lot of this, like the style, the advanced, a lot of this stuff will be the same in the different elements. So in the advanced, you're going to have your margin, which is going to be the padding or the spacing, if you will, on the outside of this section or element or whatever, because like I said, it's the same on everything. So basically at this point, we can take this up, let's say 50. And that's going to add 50 pixels of padding to the top and to the bottom. So at this point, basically, just to make it easier for you to understand, margin is outside, padding is inside. And what that means is if you have a lot of text or something in here and you want space in between the top of the section and the first element that you have loaded, you can add padding. And you can see here, let's actually unlink this. And so you see this white box here, which is where your elements are going to go. You can change that to where you have all this extra padding at the top. That way. You know, if you want to add padding to the side, you know, if you want to have an image, you know, if you have this guy like over here and you just want the content to be on this side, then you can bring the right padding in to make it to where it actually sits that way. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff you can do. I'm just running through giving you the basic crash course, if you will, on all the different edits for this. So the next thing is going to be the scrolling effect. And basically it's just as you scroll, it's, you know, going that way, it will actually stay at the top of the page. If you have the sticky on, the only thing I would really say that you would use this on is if you want your header to be sticky. So as you scroll down, instead of the header rolling up, as you scroll down, it'll stay in a small bar at the top. Next thing is responsive. This is just basically, you know, for instance, of course, tablet and mobile, if you have different columns, it'll display in certain orders, normally left to right. But if you have a picture here and a form here, and you want the form to display first when people load it on tablet or mobile, you would just reverse it by clicking this. If this is a section that, you know, you may have a video or something that takes a lot of time to load and isn't necessary for the visitors of the website, you may want to hide it on tablet and mobile to make it easier to load, so that one huge video or, you know, whatever big paragraph of content that's not needed for that specific page, for every visitor, you can get rid of that stuff to make it quicker to load. And then of course the last one is custom CSS. And like I said before in earlier videos and many other times throughout the years, if you don't know code, stay away from anything that says custom code. Custom CSS, HTML, you want to stay away from that stuff if you don't understand code, or the set of code. You know, a lot of people are comfortable with HTML but know nothing about PHP or, you know, CSS or whatever. You want to make sure you understand all that if you're going to edit. Other than that, that is the basic walkthrough for the Elementor sections. Believe that is it. So moving forward, we're going to go over the different elements. I'm going to start with basic. We're going to go intersection, and we're just going to go straight down the list and cover all of these elements in individual videos, so you guys can actually see what they do, why you use them, when to use them, when not to use them, all that fun stuff, as well as, you know, different editing, you know, techniques and things you need with each of these. So hope this has been helpful. Hope you guys appreciate, you know, can actually use this. If you like the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Once you subscribe, be sure to click the bell so you can get notifications when I upload new videos. Other than that, hope everyone has an amazing day. Be great, stay boosted, and we'll see you at the top. Take care.